Hello, welcome to Loremaster's Lair. I'm your Loremaster, here today to continue our look at the elements. This week, looking to the solid earth as an inspiration. Some of you may be asking me, why not water, as the plane of water is between the planes of air and earth? Well, because it's my show, and this is what I prepared for this week. Do not worry, there will be plenty of nice swims coming up. But today we get dirty. The plane of Earth, also known as the Eternal Delve, was once an area of solid Earth, impassable to most creatures. However, time and the influence of the other elemental planes has slowly worn tunnels into the area, creating a crisscrossing labyrinth throughout. And along with these planar influences came areas of molten rock and walls of pure salt. Darklands of Galarian is usually used as a close comparison, but that undersells the massive nature of the area. Earth elementals come in many forms. There are those that move in swarms across the plane, and there are those earth elementals and their near cousins mud elementals, which they fused with a wall for years before moving suddenly one day. There are also creatures known as forge fiends or scanderigs, which are beings which seem to have arisen during the war between earth and fire and serve as mercenaries for both sides. Zones are a race which prefer isolating themselves among mineral deposits. Rich mineral deposits that others usually want, and this ends up causing conflict. Xenomorphs, on the other hand, are builders, continuously building deeper tunnels, large vaults, and city upon city upon city before abandoning them to keep building elsewhere. Methods of the plane include both earth and salt methods, along with the rare ooze method. And while the genies of the realm tried to enslave them, many still continue to live free, forming both nations and wild gangs along the tunnel. Crystal dragons hold their own small territories, and ironically are among some of the least draconic rulers of the plane, especially as opposed to the Shaitans, genie who run on efficiency, trade, and ruthless contracts. Unlike the fire plane, willing slaves are preferred here, but that does not mean every deal Shaitans make are not exploitative. Of less interest are the creatures known as Pesh, a former slave race of Earth and Fae, some of whom still live upon the plane. However, the Pesh gave rise to another more menacing kind of creature, which will be today's first side tangent, the part of the show where the definition of insanity is going through the same torture over and over and over and over and over, and as the Pesh began living in the Darklands, they, like the gnomes, began losing their natural Fey nature, beginning to acquire food and drink. Already leaving their homes due to a civil war, they eventually found strange, glowing blue mushrooms known as brain mold. It is unknown whether it was the mushrooms or the long march of salvation, but all members of the search party transformed into mad creatures known as Darrow. Darrow also shortly learned that they were unable to go to the surface, the overbright, without the flesh being rapidly radiated away. Determined to find a way to allow themselves to walk on the surface, they began kidnapping people from the surface to experiment on to determine what they were lacking. However, their madness means that their experiments usually prove fruitless, and any attempts to pass on the research to another fails, resulting in the same tests happening over and over and over and over again with no progress. The worst part is, These creatures specifically live on the cities in order to ensure continued experiment material. Watch yourself when you go out at night. But going back to the old home of the plane of Earth, the Geniekin of Earth are Ureds. Ureds have the body types of the other half of their ancestry. But instead of having natural flesh, they have stone-like skin, usually gray or brown, but sometimes like metals or gems. As for their hair, it takes the form of either stone or crystal. Ureds tend to be the quiet types, either shy or just a loner, preferring to either work with their hands or to enter the quiet contemplation of religion, these being the Geniekin usually closest to the divine. While their Shaitan relatives find a way to contract others to work, or in turn enjoy good, honest labor. Ureds tend to grow up in communities of their birth rather than settling their own, but locations do tend to build up a decent amount over time. Examples are among the Sky Citadel Janderhof, which is close to the Crystal Heart, the area around the Emerald Spire in the River Kingdom, and around the Crystal Womb in the Darklands. Just like sylphs fit right in with elves, as we mentioned last week, so too do Ureds live well within dwarven society, especially those which still live underground. For elves, the Mahalje have been known to produce Ureds with soil-like hair and bark-like skin. When an Ured appears among the gnomes, all bets are off unusual colors, their soil and stone skin appearing in a variety of colors and patterns that are some of all only recognizable on the First World. Ured halflings are most common among the Joric in the Barrier Wall Mountains, and in some cases do develop Ured-only communities. Ured goblins make up a variety of appearances which grow and change and at some points can be movable. But one thing they are known for is to track dirt wherever they go. As for the variants, Gemstone Ureds tend to connect more with crystal dragons than Geniekin, and have glimmering skin as well as hair. Dust souls, on the other hand, might instead be influenced by the environment, like the desert or an old family farm. And for Maya souls, regardless of whether it's the environment or the elemental, they tend to show up in places where it's unstable, mud-like. Now, first off on our deity list for the day, we have the evil Erizul of the Fossil King, Lord of Buried Secrets, Earth, and Metal, which must be awkward with the new plane opening up soon. Anyway, he appears as a Tyrannosaurus fossil, and lives deep in the radioactive areas within the plane. On the other side is Cyruzul, the Crystalline Queen, Lord of Earth, Caves, and Gems. Appearing as a termite queen carved from perfect gemstone, she was once the ruler of the Zeomors, and she was the one who taught them how to create vaults, until they forgot about her and her rival took the credit. Speaking of rivalries, welcome to Side Tangent 2, the Prison Gems. Hello for the second time. So, story time. Long ago there were two deities for each elemental plane, one good, one evil. However, the evil found a way to organize first. Under the plan of the water deity Kelozandri, each of the good deities was ambushed, then trapped within prisons made from the other three elements: the moaning diamond, the gasping pearl, the untouchable opal, and the garnet brand. The gems were then hidden. Each of these gems gives one the power to affect 500 feet of the respective element 3 times a day, and can summon an Elder Elemental of that type. But to destroy them and free the Elemental Lord inside, well, you need elemental powers of each of the other 3 elements, and for the remains of the gem to be scattered somewhere without the associated element. How the Pathfinders managed to free the air deity, man, I don't know, but they apparently found a way. Of course, travel through the plane is not easy. The main way of doing so is, of course, the tunnels which naturally started forming as the borders along the borders within the planes. The largest being the vent, which passes right through the plane of Earth, connecting fire to water. However, seismic activity can easily cause cave-ins, and there is plenty of poisonous gases, especially where it touches the plane of fire. And closer to the center, radiation. The tunnels also do not get you everywhere. There's often places requiring that you what are known as trending stones to teleport to cabins which are cut off from everywhere. Now, as we travel the plains, we start with our first landmarks, unpopulated or sparsely populated. The first of these is the Saline Sarcophagus, a cavern the size of a planet. The entire area is covered in salt and sand, with hidden sinkholes which lead to portals, made to either the material plane or the plane of air. That said, creatures besides the native living sandstorms who spend too much time here quickly dry out and are added to the sands. The dead grounds are also best to stay away from, a continent-sized patch of ash haunted by nightshades. And if you think that's bad, you have not seen the Violent Road, a dangerous if convenient tunnel expanded by a mad demon determined to consume the entire plane. But it is not all danger. Amberband Grotto is the closest thing to a garden which can be made out of crystal, and people come from far and wide to bask in the cavern's light. This area is where Earth Elementals come to whenever they have their rare moods, with the 8th and current one having begun 100 years ago. And then, the Slipped Vein, a mile-long vein of gold and rubies, of silver and sapphire. Every creature of this plane wants it, but it moves not long after it's located, and many treat it like it's no more than legend. Now, hearing about precious metals makes me curious about them more in depth. So, why don't we go to Side Tangent 3 talking about these metals? Once again, having a special guest of... Hello. I'm the Laughing Salesman, your master of all things trade, so why don't I talk about the trade of metals, shall I? Considering many of these metals make up our base currency, you know I know a thing or two about them, so. First, copper. Well, copper mines are being closed down recently, but you can still get along nicely with those in Karlsgard in the Land of the Norm Kings. An ingot of it, if pure, would get you on about 100 SP, silver pieces. In comparison, a pure silver ingot is 1,000 silver pieces. Considering how good it is at hunting various fiends and creatures at night, you can always get a nice profit from its trade. Gold, of course, is a risky cargo, being 100 times the price of silver. Best used in the area it's found and let travel by trade instead of in your pockets where bandits can find it. Moving on to non-kind precious metals, we have tin. 10 ingots get you about 300 silver pieces. Best place to mine is Osirian, and best place to sell are places which silver is considered too ostentatious, like gold, and where pewter is instead the style. One more, iron. Pound for pound, 1/10 the price of copper, and can be made into many common pieces of equipment. If it's cold iron, however, well, that is equal copper's price. As for population centers of the plane of Earth, first to mention would be the center of the plane, blistering labyrinth. Home to Arizul, the entire place is radioactive, so moving through it is about half as dangerous as being found there. Then we have the two extreme sides of the plane. Bordering the plane of fire is the lava lock, the fortresses which to communicate with the Efreet at an arm's length. On the border of the plane of water is the stone tide, churning mud which people work tirelessly to build up as it continues to sink down. The most successful of these projects is the ascending metropolis, one of the greatest trade hubs in the plane. For other population centers, Citride is a large caravan with over 40 city-states, vying for control of the Topaz Halls. These include the Dwarven city of Urgashov and the paradise of Tofala. Less desirable is the Somnosphere, a prison which is made of glass, keeping Earth elementals from being able to escape. And let's not forget the Orphean Vaults, which is part of the nation of Oprek. And elsewhere is the miles-long gold vein known as Gold Hive. Outsiders are welcomed and treated like kings. But if you unwillingly take any of the gold, well, the Shaitan owners will make sure you work to pay it back. And the largest city is the Orphean Vault, the Rainbow Metropolis, capital of the Peerless Empire, and home to Arshadieh bint Khalid. Although all seemingly at war with the City of Brass, when Efreet killed the former Sultan 500 years ago, his daughter has wrapped up that war. For the city, it is separated into three parts. The outer district is where merchants and indentured servants live. This is home to the Peerless Embassy, a building for the Shaitan's diplomats with 3 wings to welcome diplomats from the other planes. The fire one is off limits, with punishment by death for those who do enter. The outer district is also home to the Apis Enclave, the Apis Consortium managing to establish a permanent embassy here. The inner district is where guild halls and military are found. For the latter, we have the Slab Garrison, which is home to the military of the Peerless Empire. For the former, the Argyle Commerce Guild is the main trade guild of the Trade Empire, controlled by the 3 most influential families in the city. Finally, the very center, Noble's Rise, is even further in, built inside a geode which swings over a lake of molten gemstones. This is home to both the Sultan's Palace, the Soaring Radiance, and the Grand Vizier's Hall, though that latter currently stands empty since the former Vizier was killed on account of all the traps and everything. Now with that out of the way, let's finish with Side Tangent 4, talking about places which are strong areas of Earth on Golarion. First, the Dwarven Sky Citadel of Cregadon is of course strongly connected to Earth. In fact, I would imagine you could say the same about all Sky Citadels. But it was Cregadon which originally held the Onyx Key before Oprek did, so double Earth connection for them. Likewise, Drago, who live deep underground, also tend to be connected to Earth, their capital Hagengoth being a clear example. Finally, the Emerald Spire in the River Kingdoms is not far from what inevitable in the River Kingdoms, and it may be the top of a vast crystal cavern. And that brings us to the end of the video. Halfway through the plains with another month to Rage of the Elements. Making good progress. Though that said, we'll have to wait for the next one. Going to be on the road for the next 2 weeks, so I'll be making a couple of simpler videos. One of them being a God video, because can't go a month without making one of those, can I? Which this actually works out, as the topic of next week's video works with today's video. Why did I choose Earth today instead of water? So I could talk about trading just a bit. See you next time.